Hold up, why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, then hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play a roulette with each step I progress, no less. Go ahead and place your bet.
Welcome back, y'all. This is the Miscellaneous Minds Podcast. I'm your host, Jesus Dinero, here with my co-host,
Puma El Gato.
What do we got going on today, my man?
We're going to be talking about the masterclass that John Silva put on, and where does Bryce Mitchell go from here? Let's talk about it.
So, as you guys all saw, John Silva dominated Bryce Mitchell in a number of ways. And listen, I said this before and I'll say it again. When you're flat on your back, of course, the earth is going to look flat to you. Now, let's go ahead and talk about what exactly happened with this man. So, I saw leading up to the match, there was quite a few people that came out in support of Bryce Mitchell. I saw a number of hashtags, We Are Arkansas. I saw a number of people on his way into the stadium, not to the ring, but into the stadium, hugging Mitchell, they're rallying. And even during the match, I believe there was quite a few USA fans, of course, Bryce Mitchell being from the USA, John Silva being from Brazil. So it was surprising to me how much the stupidity of people and the collective of their stupidity come together. But Dixon, nonetheless, you can't say that Bryce Mitchell did not have some support there. With that being said, let's keep it a buck here. The supports that Bryce Mitchell was getting, including some people saying he was dominating until he got choked out, y'all are insane. There was no part of that match, those few rounds, where Bryce Mitchell was dominating anything. Let me give him the one thing that I can give Bryce Mitchell. In the first 2 minutes of the first round, man was landing good amount of kicks to the point where he John Silva started getting some noticeable redness on his calf muscle. That's it. That's the entirety of what he did good. Anytime that Bryce Mitchell had something to respond with to John Silva, he got immediately put back in his place. And let me tell you what I mean by that. The very first takedown by Bryce Mitchell was immediately responded to by John Silva with an guillotine choke, and it was deep. Now, to Bryce Mitchell's credit, he was able to eventually get out of it, but that instance was kind of a display of what was to come for the rest of the match. Throughout the match, Bryce Mitchell attempted a number of takedowns, and damn near every time that he got one, John Silva was able to lock some sort of hold in. Like the man knew it was coming, as I'm sure he started up on Bryce Mitchell, and he knew exactly what he needed to do. There was no point in the match where John Silva at all seemed like he was nervous, worried. In fact, he kept on looking out to the crowd. He was talking to some people, talking to Dana White. He was talking shit to Bryce Mitchell during their match as he was going at him, saying, come on, let's go, come on, let's go. There was no point where John Silva seemed at all worried, scared, nervous. And don't get me wrong, Bryce Mitchell landed the occasional hard punch, the occasional good jab, things of that nature, sure. But was there ever a point where it seemed like John Silva was going to go down or where? Nah. The best I can give Bryce Mitchell is he may have rocked John Silva once. Now, here's the thing. I can tell you guys how that ninja choke looked phenomenal, how this is the second time in his last two matches where, and even Bryce Mitchell has admitted, he's gone bye-bye, he's gone night-night, he's blacked out because of his opponents. I could tell you all that and continuously make fun of Bryce Mitchell, as a lot of you guys do. But I'm here to really talk about the mentality of what happened in that match. Here's the problem with Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell is a type of individual that because he feels like he has all the answers when it comes to the earth, when it comes to God, when it comes to anything that he opens his mouth about in his clear stupidity, he believes that he has all the answers and he doesn't need to really do anything. And what I mean by that is the mentality of a fighter who believes he has all the answers, where he believes he's ordained by God because John Silva is a demon and he's been fighting demons in his sleep and he hasn't been able to get a good night's sleep and blah, 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 blah. All this stupidity is a fighter who's never going to approve because he believes, again, he said it himself, he even said it after the fight, that he believed that because this was his biggest fight yet, that God had ordained him to win and he saw his victory and he knew he was going to win. Here's the thing, my question to anybody that's a Bryce Mitchell supporter is, if a man truly believes this, right, truly believes that God ordained him to win, that God was telling him he was going to win, that he was fighting demons, that he saw a demon in John Silva, who is a self-proclaimed Christian, all this other BS, how do you improve a fighter like that? How do you tell a fighter like that, hey man, this is how you improve against these demons or these fighters that you're fighting. The problem with Bryce Mitchell is not so much talent, because again, I am in the agreement that Bryce Mitchell can be a talented grappler. But the problem is that he believes too much in the dumbass shit that he believes. I'm not telling the man he needs to stop believing in God. I'm not telling the man he even needs to stop believing in the stupidity of the flat earth shit. I'm not telling that him at all. But to say to yourself, as a supposed man of God, as a Christian man, I am ordained by God, that is the antithesis of a man who is not humble and a man who's going to keep getting humbled by God. If anything at all, Bryce Mitchell should take this as a lesson from God to humble himself, because he speaks like he has the answers when, let's be honest, he's a clear dumbass. Now, you may be saying, my man, Dinero, I thought you weren't going to go in on the man for his beliefs. It has nothing to do with his belief, my friends. It has to do with the fact that this man has a mentality that he has all the answers, and that's the problem with his fighting. He believes he has all the answers. Again, if you watch the end of the first round, the man walks away looking defeated, whereas John Silva is staring him down, even though it's at the back of Bryce Mitchell's head because he's walking away defeated. Bryce Mitchell was a man who looked defeated immediately after the first round, and that's when I knew he was going to go. There was a number of times where even Joe Rogan said it. He's throwing punches out there with nothing behind them, no power behind them. He just wants to see if he'll get a reaction out of John Silva. And even in the very, very few big punches that he did land, he didn't get a reaction out of John Silva. So my advice to Bryce Mitchell is humble yourself. My advice to Bryce Mitchell fans, humble yourselves. Because the reality of it is, as long as Bryce Mitchell stays on this kick of I know best, I know because God has told me I know, because he has ordained me to know, because it is all within this particular block of wisdom, you're shutting yourself out to the rest of the world and other types of mentalities that could help you improve as a fighter. Again, I'm not talking about his beliefs. I'm talking about the mentality of someone of a fighter who thinks they know all and see all is going to be Bryce Mitchell's downfall. What do you think about that, my man?
Listen, man, you're definitely right about the Bryce Mitchell needing to humbling himself. You know, I remember seeing an article by UFC, believe it or not, a while ago, that basically said Bryce Mitchell is putting Arkansas MMA on the map, which implies to me that Bryce Mitchell is basically the best that Arkansas has got. And I'm not going to doubt whether or not Arkansas has the capabilities to have to be a new base for MMA. But as far as where it stands right now, going into this fight, Bryce Mitchell and Bryce Mitchell fans by extension were basically saying Bryce Mitchell's base going into this fight is if he can't beat John Silva on the foot, maybe he can beat him on the ground. Having now watched the recent the recent fight on Saturday, we realize if Bryce Mitchell doesn't have the striking, he at least has his wrestling. But if he doesn't have his wrestling, what else does he have? So I can only propose one thing he can fix locally, and a second thing that he might have to fix, but he might not do it. First and foremost, he needs to work on his striking. He needs to hardcore work on his striking. If you're good at your wrestling, cool, but there's better people out there. You need to be a lot more proficient in just one facet in MMA. It's in the name. It's mixed martial arts. You can't just be over-reliant on one thing. And granted, there are some people that have been over-reliant on one thing. If you, like your Francis Ngannou's with their hard punches, your John Jones with your hard punches. If you're going to rely on that, cool. They aren't just sufficient in just one thing. They also like to rely on their grappling as well. If that first thing doesn't always see them through. And Bryce Mitchell being super reliant on his grappling, and we all saw, his wrestling wasn't enough. Now, it's disheartening when the one thing that you're proficient in gets outclassed. So what do? Try and make yourself a little bit more proficient in your short game. So first and foremost, he needs to work on his striking, whether it's kickboxing or whether it's regular boxing. He needs to work on that first and foremost. The other thing that's maybe a little bit more of an extreme example, but if that UFC article implied that he is the best that Arkansas has got as far as MMA goes, he needs to leave Arkansas. Which, again, he has his farming. I know he has his farm that he needs to tend to his animals or not. If he doesn't have that, fine. I can understand how that would be an extreme example, but you are basically saying out here that you are a soldier of God, that you are here to spread the message of God through MMA. If that is the case, you need to have every tool in your arsenal to spread the message of God. If that's what you truly think that you're going to be doing, you need to get out of Arkansas and get to a better MMA camp. And the best ones that we have are let's say Bryce Mitchell doesn't want to go to California, because there's a lot of damn good gyms that are in California. But let's say California is too
Florida.
blue estate for him to go. You've got Las Vegas, Nevada. You have Minnesota. You have Florida. Those are 3 good options for Bryce Mitchell to want to accept. Minnesota, probably first and foremost, would probably be his first one. Florida would probably be a very close second. But even Florida, if you look at it, one of the what was it? Sanford MMA, I believe it's called. Believe it or not, actually hosted Dan Ige, which, if you paid attention to the pay-per-view, Dan Ige won earlier in that pay-per-view by TKO. He is probably one of their endorsers for that gym in Florida. So if anything, Bryce Mitchell should be taking notes. Hey, maybe I should go to the same gym that Dan Ige is going. But again, that requires one important thing that you touched up on that Bryce Mitchell needs to do in order for even consider that option to be available to him. He needs to be humble. And it doesn't really seem to be in Bryce Mitchell's character for him to be humble, even if it's before God. Which, if he doesn't humble himself, and if he doesn't, he's not going to work on his striking. He's not going to work on getting himself to a better gym to be able to spread the message of God and all that. Meaning, unless the UFC hands him another tomato can, he's going to be staring at them ceiling lights again and again and again.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree with you more. You see, that's the problem. And you know, one of the things I want to top, one of the best teams in Florida, American Top Team, my guy, they have multiple champions. Go out there. You know, I was looking up while you were talking about that, just to confirm that I'm not going crazy. Yeah, he trains on his farm. That's fine. You know, he has a very unique setup. That's perfectly fine. I know Dustin Poirier trains at a small gym that's basically more tailored to his. I have no problem with you training on a very small scale if that's what it benefits you. But listen, Bryce Mitchell is no Dustin Poirier. He needs to get out of that mentality, out of his stupidity. He needs to let go of the reality of what he believes to be the right thing. And again, in no way am I saying this man needs to not be religious or not believe in none of that shit. I'm just talking about he's stuck in this mentality where he feels he has all the answers, and that's what's going to be his downfall. Because as a fighter, when you get stagnant, or fuck man, even as a person, when you get stagnant, that's when you stop growing. And unfortunately for Bryce Mitchell, that's the case. He's gotten stagnant as a person. There was one point where people were talking about this man could, reach the elite levels. Not anymore. Not anymore. He's now been blacked out in his last 2 fights. And one of them, Josh Emmett, he just lost his fight. So it's not like, again, no disrespect to Josh Emmett, but it's not like Josh Emmett is some phenomenal fighter. You know, John Silva, even though there's a lot of hype behind him, he's an up-and-comer. It's not like even like he's been a champion. He wasn't even in the top 10, I don't believe. So he needs to humble himself very, very dearly. And if he doesn't do that, unfortunately, he's going to continue to take that L. And with that, make sure to like, comment, hate, subscribe, DM us about the bullshit. And
Until next time, get rest and stay blessed. We'll see you on the next one.